Years ago, H.G. Wells visualized roads such as these in his science fiction fantasies. And today they're a reality.
You're listening to The Afternoon Commute with John Adams and Chris Kendall.
Welcome to The Afternoon Commute with Chris Kendall and John Adams. Today is November 15th, 2016. If you'd like to hear previous episodes of The Afternoon Commute, you can go to hoaxbusterscall.com and you'll see those posted up there alongside the most recent episode of Chris's Monday night broadcast, the original Hoaxbusters Call. Also posted up there are various articles and videos. Some of those are original in nature, so make sure you check those out. For any and all things Hoaxbusters, go to hoaxbusterscall.com today. Mr. Kendall, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. I guess you just reminded me because it's like mid-November, so I guess we got the holidays and all that heading toward us like a runaway self-driving 18-wheeler. Yeah, it's doing pretty good. I guess it's going to be, like it or not, it's coming, so. Did we set the clocks back? I don't even know.
We did.
Okay.
We already did. In fact, it's already on its way to getting dark here in the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah, that's why my sleeping habits have been just completely derailed.
Yep.
It just does it every time, but yeah. Maybe we should do a call just about daylight savings time. Maybe we should do that.
We've done them in the past, but yeah, we always need to remind people how screwy daylight savings is, that's for sure.
Yeah, just a reminder that, you don't magically actually gain an hour or lose an hour. I don't know if that's something.
And it was all done off of the premise of looking for bugs, apparently, allegedly. That's the story given.
That's what it says. I don't.
They wanted to let this guy look for bugs an hour later. Such nonsense. A bunch of bug poop is what that is.
And we're not making that up, by the way. But that's what. That's the official story on that.
It is. Yeah,
I've never heard that before. I'm the only one I know that's ever brought that up. Do you know anybody else who's brought that up? And I'm not making it up either. I'm not making it. People probably think I made it up, but no, I didn't make that up. And
no.
I don't
know. Well, we talk about a lot of stuff that doesn't get brought up, but
I know, and it's like I never received credit for that any time.
Yeah.
Like till now, I mean, we just mentioned it, but not that that's that important, but bugs. Bug guy did it. And like I don't know, but that's all right. Bugs. I guess it's important to look for bugs, but I don't know how. Like we gotta switch the clock around and do it, but it just the profoundly absurd nature of the system that we live in, and then I think these recent events in the media just show it's like, okay, everybody in the media and everybody on it's like it's just like the British say, barking mad. It's barking mad. It's just completely on its head, ridiculous and insane.
It's just like the British say, it's completely gone tits up.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah. So before we continue our talk, I just want to every once in a while I like to say thanks to all of our people out there who listen, other people who run other websites and guests and things like that. Always want to recognize Tim over at Fakeologists. He puts up a link to Hoaxbusters on Fakeologists, and he's always reposted Chris and my talks, at least the ones that he enjoys, and we thank him for that. As always, thanks, Tim. Jay Dyer, of course, we thank Jay Dyer, Jay's Analysis. Tim Kelly, Tim Kelly's had both of us on in recent times, guests on his podcasts as well. Nice guy. Questioning Our Reality is another one who promotes us.
Yeah.
And we thank all those people. Thank all of our regular listeners and commenters. Everybody knows who they are, who sends Chris and I emails on a frequent basis and tips us off to interesting things. Also want to thank Nino, of course, for the recent being the recent addition to the HBC Special Report crew.
Mm-hmm.
So Nino 2.0 doing a lot of good work with our punk rock investigation there, which I'm actually enjoying the punk rock investigations. They're really good. I especially enjoyed your guys' talk after I left the conversation on the last one, and people might think that you guys like went off a little unrelated. I think it's actually completely and totally related, because what you're dealing with is false dialectics and spectacle in and of itself, which was the election, which is entertainment, which is punk rock, which is rock and roll, which is commercialized music in general, is a spectacle and false dialectics. And so, all this stuff that we're seeing, that we talk about, whether, it's punk rock or whether it's, something else we talk about, we're basically talking about the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, it's all interrelated. I mean, we even had, like Nino posted a video with, I'm reluctant to mention it because I don't want, I want to spare anybody like actually going and listening to it, but it's probably the most horrible assault on the eardrums that I've heard in a good long while. But Kathleen Hanna coming out and
the Latigra,
and then coming out with the video, the Hillary worship too video, and it's like, how absolutely, utterly bonkers is that? I mean, but then there you go, and that's your situationalist, Marxist, revolutionary, agitprop theater of the extreme absurd.
Well, that's the other thing too. Is once we get into her particular neck of the woods, the Washington D.C., Washington State, post-punk meets grunge connection, when we started delving into that research, that is all based around political music. It's all political music. Every single band that comes out of that scene in that era is all politically and culturally aimed at shifting culture and politics in general. So, yeah,
which is very relevant, because that is what we're having to endure right now. Is this like shrill? Of course, it's identified as this left wing, and then it's this the everlasting victim consciousness. And one thing that I kind of came to my realization after I kind of realized that I'd been duped. I'm not immune to being duped. With the thing that like the idea. So I bought into the idea that it's going to be, Hillary Clinton for sure. And but then I got to thinking about it after the fact and looking at what's kind of unfolding now in this whole theater, because it's all theater. It's all pushed and manufactured by way of the media, driving all of it, and then with the assistance of paid performers that are out on the streets. Not all of them are paid, obviously. But there is a tendency for people to fall into crowds, and I think you're seeing that phenomena, which is they pay people to stand in line for Nikes. That tells you what's going on with this kind of stuff. Slimmer thing, but it was like, no, this is probably with the so-called social justice warrior, oversensitive, kind of the crybaby thing that's being promulgated and pushed. The idea that is like, no, this is perfect because they are the victim, identified as the victim. So it's actually the way that it's being played out right now is in the whole dialectic is that, yeah, it is great for them to have lost because they are actively fulfilling their role as this, put upon martyr or victim, And then, of course, another thing is like, this is the way, because everything is like, it seems like it kind of works out opposite of what you think. Oh, well, they've been defeated. And I'm hearing this, it's like, well, these ideas and this feminism and everything, this spells the defeat of it. It's like, do you even know what's going on? Because you look at what's happening right now, and Planned Parenthood and all these other groups are getting bombarded with cash donations. People are, of that inclination.
That's
are
what,
stuffing the coffers full of these maniacal groups and stuff like that. And
right, we were talking about this privately.
Yeah, guess who is responsible for that? People who supported Trump. It's the dialectic. Don't you get it? It's like you are feeling it. You are, with your energy and with your effort and your stuff like that, you are building up this thing that you think you're opposing, but you're serving to build it up, but through your activity. So it's like, yeah, this is going to be the where you're seeing this, where it's going to be that sort of thing is going to be eventually vindicated, right? When Trump,
right, and the other thing is too is you could look at it the opposite way, that this wave of, which I have to say, you and I called it from the beginning, from a year or 2 years ago when we started seeing the white nationalist, everybody who's making a point to point out that white people are being racially attacked. And you and I have explained in the past that that may be true in the media, that, white people do get racially attacked, but it's basically a tactic that's employed for the purpose of creating what we're seeing now. Like, it's being created on purpose. It's being done on purpose. Oh, and it's not because, like, oh, technically we really hate white people. I'm not saying that people don't hate white people or whatever, and that people don't hate black people. I'm saying that when this is culture creation, it's nonpartisan culture creation. It's hey, we're gonna say white people are, and create a racial dialectic with white people and everybody else, and we're gonna attack white people on purpose to create this wave. And so people believe that their liberalism in the false dialectic succeeded at some point here, when actually all that it succeeded was fueling the opposition to it, right?
Right.
It succeeded in creating the opposition to it, and now this, like you're pointing out, is going to succeed in creating an even bigger opposition. And one thing that we were talking about in private was that it probably has gotten a little bit too liberal, and so they had to bring in the right wing of the bird to kind of taper off a little bit, because you want to. It's about a balance, It's about balancing it out. So you don't want it to get too over the top, crazy liberal with the transgenders and the gays and all that type of stuff, and crying, the cry stuff at the colleges, the cry sessions, and you don't want things getting too limp-wristed, right? Too far on the, and I'm not saying feminine in the sense of actual female. I'm saying in the esoteric world of the feminine and the masculine. Now you're going to try to bring back the more masculine aspect for a little bit, and then you'll probably bring back the feminine again, and it keeps it in the balance in that sense. And we see this over and over and over again.
Yeah. And then did you see that they had was it Leslie Stahl, the reporter? She resembles Hillary Clinton quite a bit. She was wearing this red dress, and then she was the first one to interview Trump after his,
right,
that he's president-elect. And then he is sort of taking this role now as this, he presented himself as this, champion of all that you just got through describing. And then he goes before her and sort of takes on this kind of different persona, like he is now kind of deferent to this female figure. And these are all just figures. These are all just personas that are put in front of our face. It's like, forget about who these you think these people are. Just look at it on what is being presented to you on a certain level, where you kind of distance yourself from these personas, because that's what they are. They're just personas playing a role in this act. But yeah, look how you look at that, and look how that is being played out on as far as psychology and psychological. And then it's like, yeah, what you're describing, the feminine and the masculine and all this stuff being pumped into this whole narrative, and how it's all being used to psychologically manipulate the masses. And that's all it is, because the president is just like a corporate mascot. He's not in charge. I don't care what anybody says. He's not in charge of anything. He's going to work on his chip shot, and he's going to work on his swing, and he's going to be doing a lot of golfing. He's going to be flying around on the Air Force One and blah, 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 and all that, making appearances, making speeches.
Well, let's just say that whatever Trump decides to do while he's in here, like, we're talking about, okay, so he's going to cut taxes, right? Obviously, I like the fact that my taxes will be cut down to nothing. But there must be some ulterior motive for that. You can guess that whatever is implemented, it serves a purpose to whatever the agenda is, right? So even if it's good on prima facie, right? It's not. They wouldn't let something come in if it didn't serve a purpose. Whether it benefits you, the chattel slave who lives in the system here, the worker bee. I mean, the worker bees get to eat some of the honey too, right?
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So it's not something like, oh, well, this is great. My taxes are getting cut because there's some real change within the system, and then there's real people who have gotten in. I was listening to Jones a bunch, because Jones is cheering and, basically just having a party for himself over there, and saying that he's talking to Trump directly on the phone. He's basically one step away from being elected, press secretary or something. And he's jumping around all over the place, excited because he thinks, he said, or maybe he did. Infowars had the most influence over anything, folks. That is from Donald Trump himself, folks. He realizes how big of an audience we have and how many people get out there and spread the word. He told me that himself on the phone, folks. He thanks all of you. Now, Jones is saying that there's real change going on and all that type of stuff, and that Trump is only going to keep the goblins around. He's only keeping the goblins around, like Rance Priebus, just to help guide through the system. And once he's gotten what he needs from those people, he will throw them out like yesterday's trash, folks. We're talking about piles of garbage, folks. Garbage.
Right, and then he needs to keep his enemies close, right? So that
he needs to keep his enemies close. But see, here's the thing: it's like he's got Newt Gingrich as an advisor, and like we talked about before, the people that he always names as who he likes are like they're deplorables. There's James Woolsey, Richard Haas. Richard Haas is the president of the CFR. He said, I remember that quote. He said, like, who do you have on your phone for foreign policy, Mr. Trump? He said, I think, Richard Haas does a good job. I can't do a Trump. But I think Richard Haas does a good job. I'm like, are you kidding me? He said that the president of the Council on Foreign Relations does a good job on foreign policy. So, I mean.
Yeah. So, I mean, based on that idea, because Jones is saying that, Louis the 14th, well, he's the original powdered wig man, Louis the 14th, but he did that, and that's how you do politics. You keep your enemies close, and then, so I mean, based on that logic, if that's logic, then shouldn't he appoint then Hillary, his arch enemy, in some cabinet position to keep her close, keep an eye on her?
Yeah. I was just listening to a conversation with Jones and Stephen Molyneux, and Stephen Molyneux was basically saying the exact same thing. That's how you play politics. You compromise. You go listen to that interview. That's what he said. He said that that is the way that you do politics. Is in this world. Unfortunately, you have to compromise, and compromise is the name of the game.
Right.
And so,
right. Now, trying to predict how any of this is going to unfold. I don't like to make predictions and all that because it's just so crazy right now anyway. But I've heard this proposed, and it doesn't seem that too far-fetched. Is that maybe they're setting people up for this figurehead, this mascot, Trump, to be fake assassinated, that he can maybe go in and implement some things that will be looked at from the right-wing perspective as being like great tax cut or whatever it happens to be. And then he gets fake assassinated, and then Pence takes over, which he's a Jesuit on his face. So I don't know.
Trump could be the Republican Kennedy.
Very Republican Kennedy, yeah. There you go. And that would seem like it would really tip things over the edge, which would be not good, but at all. But it could. It's like this crescendo building where everything's kind of looks like it's kind of building to a fevered pitch. But yeah, I'm not trying to overly sensationalize all this because I think it's enough already. But
Well, another thing is too, like I was saying, it's like in the past, since Obama got elected, everything in culture and society has swung crazily to the left.
Right, yeah.
Like mainstream TV, movies, everything is so overtly left-wing and so overtly liberal and outspokenly liberal and left-wing, and that time period, you have to shut it off at some point because eventually people will really start to, tune out, which I think a lot of people have. I think a lot of people are like, okay, I'm not going to watch TV anymore. This is way too liberal for me. This is way too crazy, man. They've got, like, bestiality on television shows now, right?
Oh, really?
So,
Yeah.
So, or whatever it is, I mean, it's, gay sex on every television show, basically. So it's gone way, way over. Now, here's what has to happen. They need to bring in the right path to culture to even it out again and to normalize all of this change that has happened. That's why you start to see gay Republicans.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. That's why you start to see, because this happens all the time. I'll give you an example. It's like Alice Cooper. I'm wearing an Alice Cooper T-shirt right now, right?
For real?
Because yeah, I am. Because when I go to work, I get my clothes a little bit dirty, so I just wear whatever T-shirt I have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wearing this Alice Cooper T-shirt to work because I don't care if it gets dirty or not. And Alice Cooper is a perfect example. Here's a guy who had his situationist persona, his spectacle of the Alice Coopers. His real name is Vincent Fernier. And he helped change and modify culture through the, rock music revolution and the horror, this whole horror core, horror metal.
Right.
And stage antics of, guillotining people on stage and, all sorts of crazy stuff. Did you know that Vincent Fernier claims that he is a Christian Republican?
Oh, I've heard that. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so he is a family man with kids and a wife that he's been with since, like, the 60s or 70s, maybe.
Uh-huh.
And they're basically just down-home Christians who live in Tempe, Arizona, right? But yet he still performs as Alice Cooper. I mean, I think he just played out in L.A. not too long ago, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So there's a normalization process that goes on through culture. That's why you can go to a church nowadays and they'll play, like, Beatles songs at church.
I've never heard that, but yeah, that surprised me.
Evangelical. I know you don't go to evangelical churches or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, churches nowadays, I mean, they'll play a Beatles song at church because it could have a double meaning. It could mean, whatever. I've actually been to a church where they played "My Sweet Lord" at that church, but they just said "Hallelujah" instead of "Hare Krishna."
Oh, really? Okay. Right. So it's just, yeah. So that's what Stefan Molyneux is talking about. I can't even say his name, but whatever. But we need to, like he's already, see, they're shaping and framing it for people to, to brace you for the acceptance of it. And then I heard Alex Jones, Info Babe, saying something to the effect that, people don't want this, like, right-wing, extreme right-wing culture. They don't want it, It's like, we don't, we don't need that. So that was out of her mouth. But then, they're already kind of prepping for this, compromise, which is the dialectic, the thesis, the antithesis, and then the synthesis, which will be what you're talking about here, John, is this, normalizing these things, bringing it over into the synthesis with the what it means to be, quote unquote, Republican or conservative, will now include greater acceptance of these left-wing traditionally what would be the left.
Right. I mean, another good example is Ted Nugent.
Ted Nugent. There you go. Yeah.
hardcore right winger, board member of the NRA, outspoken Republican, and yet I would say Ted Nugent played a great part in the change and overthrow of the previous part of the culture because he was a rock and roller. Not really talking about family-oriented things like cat scratch fever. I don't think cat scratch fever is about actually scratching cats.
No, probably not. That's another good example. But see, then it's all these so-called celebrities are all up and around and through this whole process. It's this process. It's this, like I was saying, dialectic, or this kind of taking everybody that's involved, participants. That's another thing too. Is what I'm questioning is, okay, now I know this is effective to a certain degree, but on the other hand, I know, like you were talking about earlier, John, that people have tuned out. People have tuned out of it. I think that there was a pretty low voter turnout. I've talked to people saying that they didn't vote, that I thought for sure would probably vote, but they said, no, I didn't vote. So there's this also at the same time happening where people are washing their hands of the whole thing and saying, no, I don't want anything to do with this now. This is not, there's no point in voting. So that's occurring as well, and I think that's kind of being glossed over and overlooked, is that the number of people who are just tuning out, maybe looking at it as kind of like a entertainment in a way, but on the sidelines, kind of observing it. And now that's it could be. I see it on one level a positive thing, but and then another thing too. It's like with everything with the media will amplify, sensationalize, hyperbole is their forte. So they are blowing all this up and magnifying it. I think way bigger than it actually is in reality. That's another thing. It's the biggest. John, this is the biggest psychological operation since 9/11. This is what it is. But I
agree.
But then I think, too, that there's a good possibility that people have tuned out so that it is not what it's cracked up to be. That's another possibility.
That is true. It could be inflated interest. They're inflating the idea that people are interested in this.
Yeah, and I think you and I are only interested in it for the fact that this is like a cultural event of pretty large proportions, regardless of what people have tuned out, but I think it is. There is a lot to that idea that it is like it's another on one level. It's like a big shift. This is what this is going to amount to. This big kind of shift over in a certain direction.
Yeah, it's a shift, and it's also conflict that's only really taking place within the realm of the media.
Yeah, the whole Videodrome. It's on your screens mainly. That's where it's kind of all unfolding, is on your screens, on your computer screen, your tablet, or whatever, television. Have you seen the televisions that are out there now? I just recently, when I went to Oklahoma City to take a test, I was killing a little bit of time there, and I stopped in a Best Buy electronics store, and I haven't been in one of those in quite a while. And I was looking at the television sets, and they are like just way beyond what I saw last time. I couldn't believe it. It was like crazy. The resolution, the size of these things. It's like they're more and more people are getting these oversized televisions. They're just gigantic. They almost fill up a whole wall. It's like it's insane.
Yeah, I haven't. It's been the same with me. Actually, hold on one second, Chris.
Okay. Well, I'll just say that more about TV. It's like so they're getting, of course, cheaper as electronics get cheaper, and then yeah, these more and more people are having bigger and bigger television sets with higher and higher resolution, and they put stuff in the graphics, maybe in the sound as well that has I'm pretty certain of that. We've talked about this before multiple times. The subliminal embeds and all that, and the overtly hypnotic graphics and stuff that they'll show you, especially on the news media with these swirling discs and lights and stuff that kind of flicker and blink and float around the screen. And it's reminiscent if you look at like old cartoons or shows or something, then they're going to show you a scenario where a character is getting hypnotized and they'll have this like swirling ring of put that out there and say, oh yeah, stare at this, and they get hypnotized, and then it's like part of the plot of the cartoon or whatever. I remember seeing that as a kid, and it's like, well, that is exactly what they're doing, like inducing hypnosis into people. And like you get one of these now, 4K is like 4 times the resolution of what the kind of recent iteration was, the 1080p resolution, which is high def, and these are like 4K. They're like 4 times that. It's incredible. So your brain has to process all those extra pixels.
Well, yeah, I watched a movie, not a full movie, but I was at a family member's house and they were watching the movie The Breakfast Club. And so I walked in the room when they were watching it, and I was looking at it, and I was like, they're watching it on Blu-ray and high definition television, right?
Uh-huh.
And I was like, man, dude, this looks like a completely different movie. I mean, just the look of it, the way that the movie looked, because it was so high resolution. And I think what they did is, through the computer imaging, like they've zoomed in so much,
mm-hmm.
like taking the original photography and then cinematography and then like enhanced it with the computer generated imagery, that it looked like a completely different film altogether. I was just blown away at how clear like everything was.
Oh yeah.
And it was basically, the thought that I had at the moment when I was looking at it was, this is designed to make you feel like you're in the movie.
Yeah, it's more immersive, and the more detail and stuff that your brain has to process, the more immersive it is. So I think that the people that are drinking the Kool-Aid here on this past, big circus event of the elections and all that, I think that probably has a lot to do with it too. It's like the hypnotic effect of these television sets are more, the effects are more profound, because it's like the very definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? That's the old saying. But here we are again, and it's like, and then certain people seem to be very, very invested into this whole thing. And which for me, it's like, I can't, it's hard for me to grapple with. It's like, how can you be that invested into this persona when we just got through going through the same thing with this Obama Messiah character persona? We just got through going through this, and it's like, well, how is it's only 8 years ago that he got put in position as the new mascot, and then we're doing this again already. It's like that wasn't that long ago. I still remember it quite well when they had the Obama, all the people file into the mall on Washington, and there was like all these crowds, and they were talking about how this is going to be this sweeping change. This is the hope and change we've been waiting for, everybody, and like all the pageantry and the hyperbole and the just everything he was going to do and all of that. We just went through this, John. Did we not?
Yeah, and the thing is like when it comes to the media, and I'll give you an example. I was in a coffee shop the other day, and as I was walking past this person sitting in this area that I was in, was a college area, and so it's basically a coffee shop right there for the main it's the main coffee shop where all the college students hang out. I'm walking past this person as they're looking on their laptop, and they were on the Black Lives Matter website, right?
Right.
And I was looking at the fashion makeup of this person, and they had a whole, they're very hipstery, kind of hipster, obviously a college student, and they had all of the right accessories that went along with the radicalized college student. Of course, safe within the confines of the rich part of town at the rich college.
Right.
And I was just watching them as they were like on they're on some comment board on Black Lives Matter website, and so once again, you have people who get into these, whether it's someone going on InfoWars, or whether it's someone going on Black Lives Matter, or whatever. It's you have these places that you go to for comfort, because everybody wants to feel like they're part of something. You still have the and you and I were talking about this the other day. Like, people have this and it might even be innate. It might even be part of your makeup that you want to believe in something. You want to feel comfortable that something is being done on your behalf.
Right. You want your opinions validated by the establishment.
Yeah, but you also want to feel, and I admit in the past when I was younger that I may have felt this way too at certain points in my life. Like, a conversation with you and I, like, that wouldn't be good enough. I've got to actually call into like a national talk show to get my opinions heard, right?
Yeah, same. That'd be the same thing, right?
Like, I want my voice to be heard. I need to call into Alex Jones all the time. I need to call into, talk radio. Yeah, I need to call and talk radio. I need to Culture Jam the liberal sites or whatever, or vice versa, whatever it is.
When he picks up, you got to say, "You're a great American, Sean." You got to say that. Sean, you're a great.
Yeah, Jones used to make fun of Sean Hannity for that, and then now he thinks Sean Hannity is great. He really does think he's great. But yeah, so you have this appeal to these people who I don't watch those videos of those people crying, or these, obviously, I wouldn't call, they're probably not really mentally ill people. They're socially mentally ill.
Yeah, social. It's social dysfunction amplified. And
yeah, it's like social insanity. Like, it's insanity that's been like overlaid on top of culture and society, and then people adopt that insanity, but they're not really insane themselves.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like what everybody typically does. They kind of go along to get along, and then, like you said, to feel a part of something. And here's another thing too that I want to point out is it needs to be amplified. The thing with this whole thing with the safe spaces, and then we're sad that our mascot didn't get elected, so we're gonna have to go into a safe room and play with Play-Doh and eat goldfish crackers and cry and like a toddler or something like that. So that is like the outlandish kind of extreme that the so-called left needs to go to, so we can get this synthesis, right? They need to go way, by the way, over.
That's like hardcore psychological warfare right there.
Oh yeah. This stuff is like overtly, yeah. Just totally.
When I was reading that, and I was saying like, oh, they put Play-Doh and like coloring books out for these people to make them feel better. I was like, okay, this is hardcore mass psychological warfare at these schools on these arrested development people who should be adults by that time in their life, and this is further pushing them back into childhood.
Yeah, and it's on his face. It's like a extremist and absurd, right? It's like this spectacle. Yeah. Like people, it's easy to laugh at and make fun of. It's so crazy, but it's like, but it's perfect for this dialectic so that people can fixate on that. And we need to fixate on that. Oh, look how dumb they are. Look how look at their arrested development. Look at the spectacle. The spectacle that's been generated and created over here, so that we can get this dialectic running. That's what it's about. Yeah, so it needs to be the left needs to be really extreme to get this properly set up.
And then I heard this commercial on InfoWars, and it was saying, we need to help these. We need to hold on a second, Chris.
All right.
Or it was saying, let's help the left-wingers out. And so I'm thinking, like, they're saying, like, okay, well, yeah, we need to, like, put all of this aside or whatever, like, that's the presupposition, is that, Hillary lost and we need to help these people out who believed in her. And then what they said, so if you see somebody crying or in their safe space, go hand them a diaper.
What? Were they joking or not? I don't know.
Well, it was joking, but it was like basically like, yeah, go make fun of people, go be mean to them for being for being tricked into this whole thing. Is go hand them a diaper or give them a rattle or a pacifier, right?
Oh yeah.
Right, and so yeah, that's the way that you act. You're supposed to, and that in and of itself, you see, that's the type of stuff. InfoWars is supposed to, Jones. When you listen to him talk, of course he's he's a pretty smart guy. But when you hear him talk, he acts like he's real high-minded and that he's above all of that type of stuff. But now, with stuff like that, when you hear a commercial like that, that's more in line with like the type of stuff you hear like on the neocon radio, like back in the day. Like people would say that stuff all the like Ann Coulter or somebody like do a liberal a favor and give them a blankie.
Right, so that here's what you're doing when you participate. It's easy to fall into. I fall into it myself. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not immune to any of this. So I try to reassess myself, as much as as possible. You gotta like step out of it and look at it. But
By the way, real fast, Chris, if I don't respond, just keep talking because I have to go do something real quick.
All right.
I'm listening now.
If you need to go do something, go ahead, because I was going to go into the definition of politician, right?
Oh, awesome.
Okay, so if you look up the definition of polarity, what is that? To set things, it's two opposite, poles or polarity. You got a magnet, you got the one polarity that deflects, you got the one that attracts, you got polarity. That's a word, that connotes opposing forces. You have polarity. I was trying to think of the other word. To politicize, to politics. Polling is a process where you engage in the political polarization of opposites. That's what a politician does. A politician is you got electricians, you got beauticians, you got politicians. Well, what are the politician? You look up the definition, and they study political science, and they act as and then people say, well, I really dislike politics and politicians. Well, what exactly is a politician? Well, that is their function in our, I call it the human ranch or the human farm, is to serve as a polarizing force in our society. That's what their function is. And you can be a politician too. I can be a politician too by feeding into this process, like giving, like John is describing, giving the SJW, the social justice warrior, a blankie or a diaper. See, you're engaging in politics. You're polarizing. You're strengthening that polarity, the opposite forces, by engaging in it. And that's what all of this is designed to do. Well, let's divide and conquer, clearly. But when you're engaging in that, you are yourself a politician. You're serving to break apart or to create this this opposing force. That's part of that's the process of the dialectic too, is to have these polarizing forces and to amplify the field or what have you. And then through a continuing process, then it will be brought back into a more a lesser polarized state. But then it'll be like we're talking about, where there's this process, like Stefan Molyneux is saying, we have to do this. So that they're going to tell you this has to be done. This compromise has to be engaged in, to where we bring these opposite poles into more of a unified field, so to speak. I'm just trying to come up with an analogy, but but see, we're going through the dialectic. The dialectic process is what you're participating in when you participate in politics. That's what politics is. That's what it's designed to do, and it's right there in the definition of the words. People think, oh, that's too much of a stretch. That doesn't really mean that, or that, or whatever. But no, I think it's really fitting. In regardless of you breaking down the etymology of the words and parsing all that, or what have you, which I don't typically like to do, but I think it's fitting in this case, or on its face, that's what it's doing. So, John, you back? I guess John's still preoccupied, but
no, that was good. That was that was good. I definitely agree with what you're saying, because it's the job of the system to provide you with your ideas, your opinions, to give you your figures that you're going to vote for, to give you. They are going to provide the issues that are important. The NAFTA trade deal is important, right? That's a very important thing. Is it important? As you pointed out before, well, it's important because they're telling you that it's important. It's like that's been going on forever, right?
Yeah. They're not going to go into how Nixon really got this really kicked off. Every subsequent president has built upon that to this day. Not going to point that out for you because then it's like, well, it's obviously all a sham. But
right, Jones is busy having Steve Pachenik and Roger Stone on, who actually say Nixon was a good guy. So
yeah, he's a good guy
because they both worked for him. You got a whole bunch of CIA operatives talking how they helped Trump out and helped him get elected. Which of course I don't believe that because it's all selection. It's a selection, not an election. But they're all saying Nixon's, great and wonderful when, as we both know, Nixon was the one who went over there to talk to Mao to pave the way for China to bring in the GATT, to bring in the NAFTA. Okay, so, so yeah, it's the thing. I mean, so to say that, oh yeah, well that was a terrible deal and the Clintons did it all. It's like, no, the system did it, and the person who was able to convince the people that it was a great and wonderful thing was Bill Clinton. And see, another thing that we're seeing here is we're seeing it's when, and you and I have talked about this before, when the temple gets old, you tear down the old temple and you rebuild the temple on top of the old site. Mm-hmm. When your roof starts to leak, you tear the roof off and you put a new roof on. Okay? A lot of this stuff that we see currently is not appealing. It's not only not appealing to the general public, but a lot of it's not even appealing to people in government. So
right.
you got to regroup and give people the idea that, this time there's really going to be some big changes. And they might give us some token changes, but the system in of itself is not going to change. The foundations of these things aren't going to be discussed. I mean, is Trump going to get rid of the Council on Foreign Relations?
Probably not.
Is Trump going to kick the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds out?
No, I don't think so.
Is he going to go down the street from his Trump Tower to the Rockefeller Foundation and the Ford Foundation and arrest everybody?
He might bullhorn them. No, he's not even going to do that. But
is he going to go down the street from his Trump Tower to the CFR at the Pratt House and say everyone in here needs to be arrested? I mean, that stuff is not going to happen. And those would be the things that would be fundamentally interesting, to say the least, as far as, I mean, is he going to go to the Grand Lodge of Freemasonry in New York instead he's going to go to a dinner and kiss the ring of the Archdiocese and call him Your Eminence and hang out with a bunch of Jesuits and Knights of Malta with giant Maltese stars and Order of the Crown badges.
And when you call someone Your Eminence, like if you look that up, like what that means, it's a political term as well, and it means your political superior, your authority. It's not just a because Trump is a purported Catholic or whatever. It's because it's also a political term as well. If you look that up,
I mean, the Jesuits are a political order. It's not, and I don't mean anybody who's ever. I mean, you can go to. I mean, there's Jesuit high school always. I mean, there's a Jesuit high school down the street from my house, right? So people go to Jesuit schools. They don't even know what that is, So I understand, like, people go to Jesuit schools all the time. Loyola Marymount College is a Jesuit college. Xavier is a Jesuit school. But as far as political Jesuits go, that is a political group. They were started as a political group. right?
Right.
In fact, the original name for Jesuit is basically Illuminati. It's the Ulambratos, which was the Enlightened Brothers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It was basically the Spanish Illuminati. That's Ulambratos.
Which is the yeah. So yeah, like, but who are the true ruling powers? I think the Jesuits are up there. I don't know. People dismiss them and say it's all a Zionist conspiracy, and but no, I think that they all work in hand. I don't dismiss
Absolutely.
any of the way people want to point out, oh, hey, look at all this people that happen to be also, Jewish surnames or whatever. It's like, yeah, I know that's out there, but do you think that they represent an opposition to, the Jesuit order? It's like, no. So, but are all Jesuits actually crypto Jews or whatever? I don't know. Like, what do you got to define all this stuff and source it all out? What's the point?
Yeah, keep talking again. I'm going to be busy for a minute.
But yeah, what's the point and all that? Well, that's here too. That's another example of polarization. We can debate that amongst ourselves as quote unquote conspiracy theorists. Like, who really runs it? It's the Jews. No, it's the Jesuits. The Jesuits have more influence than the Jews. No, the Jews have more influence than the Jesuits. You idiot. Don't you see that? Jews are everywhere. It's like, yeah, we can polarize on that issue, right? So that's, as long as we do that, that's fine. We could be polarized on that. So we're engaging in politics. We're always engaging. That's why, there's always that saying that I heard growing up and stuff. Oh, never discuss religion and politics. Well, why don't you discuss politics? It's polarizing. It makes people at odds with each other. That's why you don't discuss it. Well, religion does the same thing. It creates religion is a lot more in line with politics than people realize too. It's kind of fused at the hip. But yeah, it's to break people apart, polarize them, and that's what it's designed to do. That is what it is exactly designed to do. It's not. It's herd management too. You want to segregate certain members of the herd. You want some of them going to this pen. These sheep have this type of wool. We want to kind of keep them in this kind of pen so that we run them down the chute to shear them. Well, they'll all be, accommodating. And then over here we got these, and they got this particular type of wool, and we want to keep the, we need polarization on the ranch to facilitate all this, to get us down the proper chute. So for our processing, but we can now at this point get really upset with each other. Like, well, I've heard this too on different podcasts and stuff where it's like, yeah, I know people that have been friends for a long time, and then over this support for Trump, they've got into arguments, and now they're no longer speaking. It's like, well, yeah, there you go. That's politics. That's what politics is. That's what it's about. That's the very definition of it. It's to create polarity, to break people apart on a social level, and it's probably breaking families apart. It's breaking churches apart. It's breaking, it's this polarization, and then later on we can go into the synthesis phase where it's like, we need this, they call it healing. We need to heal the nation, and we need to that's what they're calling for, is the synthesis phase. So we have, that now that's quite amazing that the media is calling for, a healing but after they've so openly instigated all of this, but see, that's what they're wanting to do. Now we go through this different phase of this whole process. It's time to go through this now, and then we all dutifully comply. because our emotions are worked up and prodded and built up into a fevered pitch, and it's all emotionalism. A lot of it has to do with that. And, not that there's not any real concerns. Yeah, it's like people want the other taxes lowered, people are out of work, and all of this stuff. But that is symptomatic of this thing called civilization. It's not, the politics is to keep you in that state, to keep you in there in that dependent state, so that we can't all have some kind of something that's outside of this. So we got to, that keeps us all in the system. When we can take a position, and then we can put false hope in these so-called leaders, which are not leaders. They're just, like I said, mascots. And I think that is not a bad analogy. I think that the mascot is quite fitting. I put that article on hoaxbusterscall.com, and I did a little graphic with Trump as a mascot with the USA logo next to him. And I've covered before how this entity, this creation called the United States of America, in actuality, you look at things like the Treaty of 1783 and all of that, where King George had a business venture that he needed to receive his dividends off of, and they all worked that out. Well, he supplied the ships to the Columbus to be the explorer, to chart out new lands and all of that, which I said they already knew this was over here, but that was to kick all this off, the colonization of the Americas by the Europe. And that was all in large part was a commercial venture for King George. And then so they set up the Corporation of the United States of America, which King George still presides over, believe it or not, because like as it's coming out now, and Harvard professors are even bringing this out. It's like, yeah, the revolution wasn't fought against the king. It's like, what do you mean, professor? That's outrageous. I've obviously fought against the king. No, it's like it's that I'm looking at the writings of the so-called founding fathers, and their main beef was with Parliament. And Parliament was positioned back then as opposition to king. See there again, the dialectic. And they had already gone through previous revolutions in Europe for that very same thing. So they were taken through the dialectical process. Out of that dialectical process, we get the Crown Corporation of the United States of America. Your president is a corporate mascot. It's like it's more has to do with like branding. And like you'll see the Chiquita Banana Gal or the Kool-Aid guy that's like a picture of Kool-Aid with a face on it, or the Michelin tire guy. It's like, what's that for? Well, it's to put a friendly face on the brand, to build positive associations with the brand. Now that's what the so-called president is there to do. Obama was our past corporate mascot. He had the kind of like Uncle Ben's rice. We put a black guy on there for whatever reason. And not to be that's not racist. Racist pointing that out, but why Uncle Ben have a black guy on there? Well, it connotes certain things for a certain type of demographic, and it serves a certain particular specific purpose. See, we're out of rice now. We're going to this pasty gruel called Trump or whatever it is. I don't like the guy really as a mascot. The orange with the raccoon eyes and the whole thing and the hair. That's like really extreme for a. I mean, I don't know. I don't like the mascot. I don't like the look of the new mascot, but
Well, we've been raised in a culture, in a society that through the consumer-based society, we've been, and the sports-based and all that stuff, we've been given the idea of polar opposites being, that there's this opposition to something else, and it's been weaved into our mind that this is the only way to do it, right? Like the idea of the dialectic is weaved into everything culturally. So Super Bowl, you got the two teams, you know, which do I want? Do I want the Coke? Do I want the Pepsi? All the movies, you know, it's the hero versus the ultimate evil. And so you have polar opposites, once again the word polar. So polar opposites against each other. There's no room for in between. There's no room for a middleman. There's no room for something else, right? It's the extreme of one side versus the extreme of the other side. And that's how we get roped into all of this. That's how, you know, compromise, the only compromise that is taking place is the compromising of people's morals, values, and opinions when they go to the voting booth and they vote for somebody that they don't agree with, right? Or that they don't know personally. They don't know them personally. They might not even agree with it, but they're just gonna, you know, hold their nose and vote, as they used to say. And this process in and of itself is part of the breaking down of values and ideas that you kind of hold true to yourself. You know, like we've talked about, like, okay, you ask any liberal left-leaning person out there, most of them, if they are pro-war or anti-war, most of them would say that they're anti-war, but they would vote for Hillary Clinton in a heartbeat.
Right. To keep Trump from getting in.
Yeah, but so you will compromise a value or a particular idea that you hold in the process of this ritual we call voting. And the only thing that's been achieved, which leads me to believe, once again, which we've discussed before, that our opinions, our values, and our ideas are very important to the system, and it's very important that we compromise them on a daily basis, basically.
Yeah, we need to now, compromise those things. That's what it's about.
Because once you've compromised one thing, it becomes a lot easier to compromise something else, which you may compromise something else, and, you know, next thing you know, we end up in the whack job society that we engage with on a daily basis, where 6-year-old girls are listening to Nicki Minaj and you know, watching Saw at the same time.
Right. Which, if that particular film would have came out, you know, 40 years ago, people would have probably found out who did it and literally tarred and feathered them, or something worse. You know, it would have been a mob, you know, would have converged on that. Or some persona like Marilyn Manson, for instance. I mean, like imagine him opening for Elvis back in the day, you know. People would have been utterly, absolutely, completely horrified, and to probably where there'd be a public lynching. You know, that's how it would have went down. Probably something to that effect. He would have been ran out, I'm sure. But today it's like you got him cutting off Donald Trump's head and effigy and all that on a video, and it's like, oh, look at that, and that's something, and that guy radical.
Yeah, the one that I recently saw. Of course, this is. I believe this. All of this is staged to make people angry, but it's interesting. It's like I was saying to you the other day. Well, in this particular instance, I don't know if you saw that photograph of these protesters, and then somebody's holding up a sign that says "Rape Melania."
What's that referring to?
His wife's name is Melania Trump,
yeah.
right?
Okay, rape her. Okay.
And so, yeah, so one of these protesters is holding up a sign that says "Rape Melania," right? And the other thing was the other day, in just some little bit of research that I'm doing on the side, I was watching a roast, and one of the roast participants was Ann Coulter, right? The right-wing Skeletor-looking figure.
Mm-hmm.
And she was participating in this roast, and basically the entire roast, it wasn't a roast of her, it was a roast of Rob Lowe, but the entire roast was basically directed at her because they had all of the liberal media stars up there saying bad, they were saying mean things about everybody on the panel who was roasting Rob Lowe, but they were particularly directing them all at her because, and obviously I think she was on there for that purpose. But the interesting part about it is, like, I mean, you're not really supposed to say this, you're not really supposed to say "see you next Tuesday" anymore.
Right? What are you talking about?
C-U-N-T, see you next Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I never
heard you never heard that?
No.
So anyways, yeah, every single person on that panel basically tells her that she's a racist C-U-N-T, but these are all liberals who are all politically correct, and they don't, that would be a misogynistic word, that would be hateful, it would be hate speech, right? But
yeah,
they have no problem using it in that regard. And so once again, there's when you get into the realm of mass media and this political or entertainment realm, same thing, and the realm of protesting and all that type of stuff, there are no real values. It's like we talked about before. Like it's a pragmatic state, right? It's a pragmatic type bit of theater, and you can always point to someone on the other side and say, "Look, they're doing it." So like whatever you accuse me of doing, I'm not bad because you guys are doing it too. And then it keeps going back and forth and back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And you can always point to the other side and say, "Look how bad the other side of that is because look at what they did." Right?
Well, here, let me throw this in there. Let me throw this in there real quick, John, because we've talked about this off the recording, and it got me thinking about this. How akin to that is, like, I'm not married, but how akin to that is a wife-husband kind of dynamic, to where the wife, not woman bashing, but it is typically the arguments are more emotionally driven and sort of like on one edge of the extreme, where it's like you can have, well, it depends on what particular family you're talking about, of course, but I'm just saying, kind of generalizing how what I've observed as far as how certain people argue certain things. Right now males are typically known to be more sort of like appealing to like logic, but then of course women typically are more kind of emotionally driven, how it makes them feel. And then you see that same thing played out with this right left dialectic, so that what you're describing, to where the feminine side of it can be sort of more emotionally driven, to the point where it's kind of like it can be this apparent kind of extreme, apparent hypocrisy that's being forgiven, like that's permissible, that's okay, because it's a concession for the female. And then, like it's like you see with the arguing wife and the arguing husband, it's like if the female engages like that, it's expected that it be permitted, right? On one level, I mean, I you know, I don't want to get myself in.
No, I totally understand. I totally understand that there's a lot of it does take place like that, and it particularly takes place within that realm for that particular instance, because if you know, on the esoteric side of things, the left path is the more feminine, as they claim, and the right is supposed to be the more masculine. I believe that is an overlaid, simplified thing. I don't believe that to exist in nature, in real life. I believe that is an overlaid, esoteric, secret society philosophy that has been overlaid on top of nature. I don't believe that your left hand is the more feminine hand or your right hand is the more masculine. I don't believe that. But it's symbolism, right? It's all symbolic. But what they do is they will take aspects, like you said, of the female and the male and apply them to the overlaid symbology that is then infused into society and all those things. So it's exactly right. It's the left is more emotionally driven. It's more based around. That's why you have bleeding heart liberals, because the liberals are supposed to be so much more caring than the more logical right wingers. And I'm saying within that realm, I'm not saying that's what I believe. I'm just saying that's what is portrayed. The more logic-driven, the more, hardcore Republicans and that type of stuff. And yeah, you do, when you don't have a compatible partner in a relationship, what happens a lot of the time is there is a double standard applied. A lot of times it is with women. I have found that, where it's like, let's say you get in an argument with him, and then you say something mean, right? Mm-hmm. And then you get in another argument another time, and then they say the exact same thing. And you said, "Wait a minute! I thought you weren't supposed to say that. Remember, you told me last time it was a mean thing to say." Say, "Well, yeah, too bad."
Well, right, yeah. So and I'm not saying that all women are the same or anything. But that is more typical of the feminine kind of argument. It's like they can it's somehow they're expected to be permitted to engage in sort of like extreme hypocrisy. You see what I mean? Like what you just got to, yeah. So right,
absolutely.
Right. That's exactly what we're seeing with this left-right dialectic. It's like, oh, we can. It's okay and it's permitted to engage, and then the male has the or what's representative symbolically as the male is the reason why that plays out that way, because always, traditionally, and like and like you say, I agree. I think it's overly distorted, magnified representation of that, where it's a male is expected to defer to that, and they do. It's like, well, yeah, but okay, we're dealing with a female here, so it's kind of.
Yeah, and then when you're dealing that within the realm of mass media, where what they're doing is they understand how to stimulate those particular responses from people, and there's all sorts of archetypal symbolism that is applied to each of those things. So it's like when we were talking about how Hillary's wearing the blue suit and Trump's wearing the red tie. We've got Trump standing on the right, she's standing on the left. And so there's archetypal symbolism going on with all of that. It's like I said, it's like those things don't necessarily appear in nature, but we've had all of those things infused into our culture and our society for so long that we've grown up with all of those associations.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so we make those associations within our mind, and then when they play themselves out in our reality, we attach our already preconceived ideas to those things. and
Yeah,
we
we
see
have
them.
a preconditioned inbuilt response to it already through our
Yes.
conditioning.
That's how you get people to go along with going into war, basically, right? Because you get attacked on 9/11, right?
Mm-hmm.
They invoke the masculine by doing that, and they appeal to the more masculine aspect of everybody. It's not necessarily just males. It's kind of a group masculinity that you need to go out and defend yourself and attack, right? And then once there's an engagement there, you can appeal to the feminine to create the controlled opposition after the fact, like, oh, that was a bad war, we need to get out of it, and create the controlled opposition as a backlash against the war that was started by the same people who started by the same media, who then comes out later and says, oh, yeah, well, actually, we're all lefty anti-war people.
But what we're seeing too is that we talked about this before, and now I can kind of more clearly see the cultural significance of women nowadays actively engaging in sports, right? So you have now it's commonplace for women just to be much as sports fans as men. So they're these.
Oh, I think it's on the horizon at some point, and this is a merging of the two here because once again you have this. Like I said, it went far over for the past 8 years, way to the left. Now it's got the pendulum's got to be pushed back over to the right. There is no swinging pendulum, by the way. The pendulum swinging would imply that there's a natural order to this. Mm-hmm. The pendulum gets pushed.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a movie that's coming out, or has come out, where there's like a girl baseball player and she's like the best pitcher.
Okay.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but yeah, there's some movie about some girl, like they let a girl into the baseball league and she turns out to be, the best pitcher or whatever. And I think that's what you're going to see next, is that they're going to start letting women into men's sports. Right? They'll have these, co-ed sports. I don't have a problem with it because actually, when I was a kid, you had co-ed baseball and everything, and basketball too. Mm-hmm. I don't care about sports, so I don't care if sports are co-ed or not. I have no dog in that fight, as they say. I've got no basketball in that game. But they're not going to let women play sports because they love women and want them to play sports, because they want them to be equal with men. It's because they want to change your culture that already exists.
Yeah, so what is the significance of women being all up in sports now? I think that the sports is a simulated warfare, right? On one level, it's a mock battle. It's kind of like tribalism and stuff is all infused in it. And then, so now women are actively participating in it. And of course, at the same time, we have the info babes on the scene with all your media outlets. You got your info babe. And then, like I saw recently on Alex Jones, he's got this redhead gal is like his info babe that he criticizes Fox News for, actually. So so he's that part of the dialectic where you have the overt hypocrisy of doing something that you're actually doing yourself, and then that way that the opposing side will adopt it, saying, well, if they can do it, like you're talking about, well, we can do it too. So you can't criticize. But anyway, so she's so engaging and saber rattling, warmongering, and that's something you're seeing now. Where like women are cheering on engaging in war, that's relatively.
Well, don't they want to? They want to let females in combat now, right? Too?
Yeah, I've been talking about that for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, I mean, people of sports is a very neutral zone, right? It's a very neutral zone as far as like liberals and Republicans like to watch sports, both of them. And if there's one way to shift the so-called ideals, we've been talking about this for so long. First of all, there is no traditional society for conservatives to hearken back to. The ideas of conservatism and traditionalism that they hearken back to were not real. They didn't exist in real life for that. It's the same thing with the liberals. The liberals have this, they hearken back to this, the 60s, the CIA created 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Right? As if the 60s were good. And so both of these people are, they're in throwback mode.
Okay, yeah.
They want to get back. Everybody wants to get back to where they once belonged, as this is the Beatles used to say, right?
Right.
So yeah, there is no, like we talked about, the 60s is the perpetual throwback. You can always go back to the 60s. And then for the conservatives, you can always hearken back to the good old days when, Eisenhower was in office. Because,
40s and 50s.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Eisenhower was a good guy, right? When he wasn't hanging out at the Century Club with all the CIA guys and having Council on Foreign Relations run his administration, he was a good guy. So, remember, he warned us about the military-industrial complex, Chris.
That's true, right. So he must have been a good guy to warn us about something. He must have been. Yeah.
Yep. But,
it's, but just put in there about, like, hypocrisy. It's like that is kind of like something that is replete throughout this whole thing of politics. It's like, yeah, and you come to that realization that you could point out what the other side is doing, and the other side could point out that, they're doing the same thing. And then that generates a degree of acceptance for that thing, right? Because, hey, you're doing it and it's bad and it's sort of out of line, but then you're doing it too. And so that process goes underway for a long time until it becomes accepted in the norm, and then no longer will you be criticized for it.
Great. Exactly. That's what I was saying. Like, they have this.
Yeah.
That's why they have these. This, Milo, the over the top gay Republican, which he even admitted. I was listening to a Jones interview with this guy, and he even admitted that he's not even really like that. Like, I guess he's a gay guy, but he's not even really like a total fashionista queen. But he says in order to make the point about gays being Republican, he acts and dresses like that on purpose, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So basically what he's saying is, the left has queers who do that, so I'm going to be a big queer, even though I'm not really like that. And I'm going to do it too because, to illustrate a point. So as I used to say back in the old days, I'm pulling into my driveway currently, and I think I will end on this note, is compromise is the name of the game. I think that's what we've concluded here today, my friend.
Yeah, so if you're of the right-wing persuasion or what have you, and you think this is a great victory, and then it's like a repudiation of the left and all that, it's the exact opposite. You're engaging in the dialectic, and you are going to incorporate the aspects of the left that you so vehemently oppose you're engaging in the process now of acceptance of those things. Not full acceptance. I'm not saying that. Not in this phase. That may be for a later phase.
You're not going to see all the cultural changes go away.
No.
You might get lower taxes, but you're going to see. I think what will happen personally. It's just a speculation, but I'll just make it. I think what will happen is if they do have this manufactured time period of putting money back into people's pockets or anything like that, that might even pave the way for more decadence.
Sure. Yeah. And then they can put money into more people's pockets, and then more people can contribute to left-wing ideologies and that.
Well, nobody's ever. Well, not like they used to. It's not like people are going to. I would hope. I mean, I know there's a lot of good things out there. I of course like the fact that I can go down the street and buy raw milk and eggs and go to the organic supermarket. I like that aspect. But I think on the whole, it's just what you see when more money gets pumped in is on a whole, not an individual level, but it's just people tend to become more decadent and more spendy and engage in the proliferation of the decadent side of culture, not really the more moral side of culture, if you know what I mean. Unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's
Hey, if I get lower taxes, mm-hmm. I'm gonna buy more raw milk.
Right. Yeah. I can see that happening. There's going to be concessions to the plebes, so we might get a biscuit tossed our way from our gracious.
Listen, Chris, I'm telling you right now, America is like Nineveh, and I'm like Jonah. Telling them, listen, you're going to get a reprieve right now, okay? I just got out of the whale. I just got out of the belly of the whale. I'm here telling you, listen, you have the opportunity with Trump coming in to give Nineveh a reprieve. Do you understand? Okay? I'm over here. I've been saying for years, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Finally, Washington is listening to what Alex Jones is saying, folks. People are saying, listen, Alex, you're going to be the mainstream media now. Listen, folks, I'm not going to be mainstream, okay? I'm going to do what's right. I'm not going to play ball with the establishment. I'm going to do my best to try to get people to buy Brain Force, okay? Because I'm going to tell you right now, folks, for the past couple of years, I've been doing nothing but eating a handful of blueberries and just taking Brain Force every day. I'm gonna revel in this victory. I'm gonna go out and eat a plate of 15 enchiladas right now, just because I'm so happy that Trump won.
Yeah, extra enchiladas for Alex. This tax cuts. Yeah, you gotta laugh at this stuff.
I've got 15 stacks of enchiladas. I mean news right here in front of me. All right. I gotta go.
Yeah, good call, man.
Good call. Yes, I will speak to you soon. And adios.
Adios. Adios con Dios.